Depending on how you're feeling, maybe just pause the video and take 5 minutes and just breathe. Okay. There's a lot going on in this. We're going to do some application problems. So let's start with example 81. Example 81, we're talking about Julia. She's just retired. Congratulations on the retirement, Julia. She has $600,000 in her retirement account, and she needs to reallocate that to produce income. She's looking at two different kinds of investments. One of them is a very safe guaranteed annuity that will provide 3% interest. And there's also a somewhat riskier bond fund that averages 7% interest. So, the bond in this case, this is not, in my experience, usually true about bonds. But in this case, the bond has a higher expectation, but it's a lot riskier, and she could lose. Even though if we expect 7% interest, maybe the fund just crashes. So she'd like to invest as little as possible in the risky bond fund, but does want to expect about $40,000 a year in interest to live on the interest. So how much should she invest in each account? We're going to have to combine methods from 1.6, solving application problems, with 2.1, solving these systems. So we can't even model any of this with math just yet. There's a lot of information, but let's start with what we're being asked about. How much should she invest in each account? Because that's going to tell us what our variables should be. How much should she invest in each account? Okay, so we can let X be the amount she invests in one account, in the annuity one, sure, the safe one. And we could let Y be the amount that she invests in the riskier bond one. This is my shorthand. If I write one thing on top of the other and I don't want to write she invests in again, I just write scribbles. That just means the amount she invests in bonds. Okay? So that's a really great start, is just knowing what variables that we're talking about. And for units, both of these are just in dollars. So what do we know about these amounts? And how do these amounts kind of incorporate the problem? Let's read the problem again. She's got $600,000 that she needs to reallocate. Okay, that seems useful. She's looking at two investments. One has 3% interest. One has 7% interest. She doesn't want to put a lot into as little as possible. She wants Y to be small. She wants this one to be small. I'll write that down. Maybe it'll be useful, maybe not. But she does need to produce $40,000 in interest in a year. Okay. How much should she invest into each account? So let's start with that first piece. She's got $600,000 total. Well, what is $600,000 going to have to do with her X and Y? Well, $600,000 is the total that she's investing. So the amount that she invests in the annuity and the amount that she invests in the bonds together, that should be $600K. All right. I'm going to change my variables because I don't like zeros. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this be in thousands of dollars. You don't have to do this. You can just have it be directly dollars if you want. So we have X $1,000 invested in the annuity. We have Y $1,000 invested in the other one, and that should equal $600,000. That's an equation, and that's true. X $1,000 plus Y $1,000 needs to equal $600,000. Now we need the second one, and that's going to have to do with the interest, right? We want $40,000 in interest. So we get 3% of interest as a decimal, that's 0.03. 3% in interest based on how much we have in the annuity fund. Right? The interest we get in a year is just 3% of whatever we put in that fund. We expect. These are all random things. But we expect about 3% interest. Well, there's also 7% interest for how much we invest. This one. Well, the total interest is just when we add them together, and we want that to be $40,000 in a year. So again, I'm going to write 40 because we're talking about thousands of dollars. We've got a system of equations. We need to solve it now. Elimination or substitution? Your choice. Okay. So I don't love the idea of substitution or addition, your choice. I don't love the idea of using the addition method because I have to get one of these coefficients to match one of these coefficients, and that's going to be multiplying by weird numbers. You could. And in fact, if you did that, you'd multiply this one by like 100, and this one by -3 would work, or -7. We haven't done a lot of substitution method in these videos, so let's use that. Solve for one of the variables in one of the equations. So again, let's switch colors. I'll solve for y. That's very normal. Y is 600 minus x. So now we use that in the second equation. So the second equation says 0.03x plus 0.07y. What was y? Y was 600 minus x. Needs to equal 40. And now we can just solve for x. Let's simplify. I'm always working on the right side of my paper for some reason. I have right-sided biases. 0.03x, if we distribute, what's 0.07 times 600? I think it's 420. Nope, I think it's 42. Pretty sure it's 42. And then minus 0.07 times x has to equal 40. Combine the x's. We have 0.03 of them. We're losing 0.07 of them. We're now down 0.04 of those x's. Plus 42 equals 40. We can subtract 42 from both sides. We're going to get that negative 0.04x is equal to -2. Divide both sides by negative 0.04. It's going to be a positive number now. Do I want to do this in my head? I think it's 50. I think it's 50. I'm not going to check it yet. Let's check it at the end. So if x is 50, what does y have to be? Well, I'm feeling actually very nervous. If x is 50, this is why we check our answers, guys. If x is 50, y is going to have to be... y is going to be 600 minus 50. Y is going to be 550. She doesn't want to invest a lot in the risky bond fund, but we're telling her she might have to. So I'm going to check my answer before I write it all out. I'm feeling a little nervous. Okay. So if we invest $50,000 in the annuity and $550,000 in the bond fund, yep, we're investing $600,000 total. What's our interest going to be? Well, it's going to be, if I can find my calculator, the interest is going to be 3% on that $50,000, and it's going to be 7% on that $550,000. All right, that's $40,000. We checked our answer, and it checks out. Well, too bad, Julia. Should have saved when you were younger, I guess. Should have made more money. Why did you not make more money? Why did you not just be rich? Silly Julia. All right, so these are our answers. Let's interpret them. So she should invest $50,000. Careful with your units. In the annuity. Unfortunately, she does have to do most of it in the riskier bond. $550,000 in the bond fund. Can't spell fund without fun. All right, there we go. That's how you do it. All right, we got example 82, similar. But this one, I just want you to set up a system, and then I'm saying you can use a computer to solve it. It's a 3x3 system if you want more practice. If you want to
just do it,
then you could and get some extra practice. But I'm going to be using a computer to save you some time. We won't solve too many 3x3 systems, only a couple. So example 82 says, Trin is trying to plan a meal to meet specific nutritional goals. She wants to construct a dish with rice, tofu, and peanuts that will provide 30 grams of protein, 14 grams of fat, 50 grams of carbs. Set up a system that can be used to find out how much of each ingredient she should use. There's some missing information. I don't know how much protein, fat, and carbs have for these ones. So we're going to have to find that out. Okay. So this one requires a little bit of research. Okay. So let's see. What are we asked to do? We want to find how much of each ingredient should she use. Those will be our variables, right? X, and apparently she doesn't care about taste or composition. Let's say X is grams of rice. Y is grams of tofu. You could be more creative with your variables. R for rice, T for tofu. And Z is the grams of peanuts. So rice, right, it's going to be mostly carbs. Tofu is going to have some good protein. Peanuts are going to have some fat. Peanuts might have protein. I don't know. There we go. Okay, so what three equations do we have? Well, we don't care about how big our meal is. So we don't care what X plus Y plus Z equals. But we need 14 grams of fat. All right, let's go in order, right? We need 30 grams of protein. We need something to equal 14 grams of fat. And we need something to be 50 grams of carbs. And so we just need to find out, well, they're all going to look something like this. We just need to find out the nutritional value for these things, and then that's what our coefficients are going to look like for these ones. So we take it to Google, or I'm using Microsoft Edge right now. I'm going to use Bing, I guess, and say, okay, what is tofu nutritional? Let's find this out. Okay. One serving is 3 ounces. Oh gosh, give me in grams, please. Per gram. Okay, so if it has 100, there's a lot of information here. Let's say we have a 122 gram block of tofu. That's going to have, oh, good. We got a lot of information. So 15, I can't highlight it without it covering it up, but look right here. 15.57 grams of protein for 122 grams. Okay. So for Y, tofu. Oh, we should let's color code them maybe. I don't know. Tofu is going to be 15.57 grams of protein. So rice, tofu, peanuts. 15.57 grams for a block of 122. Okay, that's how much protein is per gram of tofu is this much. We could calculate that out and go, but let's put the other things. The first one, oh, that was the first one. The second one we care about is fat. It's going to be 12.19 grams of fat. Very similar. 12.19 grams of fat per 122 grams of tofu. And the last one is carbs, is 5.36 grams of carbs per, again, 122 grams of tofu. Great. So what does that mean? Well, first off, it means we're going to have to use a calculator. Okay, 15.57 divided by 122. Let's round to 3 decimal places. Or can we get a nice fraction? No, let's round. 0.128 approximately. Grams of protein per gram of tofu. 12.19 for the fat. That's really just about 0.1. Okay. And 5.36 for the carbs. I actually didn't know the tofu had such a high fat concentration relative to the protein. I mean, more protein than fat is actually really good, but anyway, 0.044. So those are our coefficients, right? That says for protein, for every gram of tofu we put, which is why we're going to get 0.128 grams of protein for every gram of tofu. For fat, we're going to get about 0.1. For carbs, we're going to get about 0.044. And we might have to zoom in. So we're going to do the same idea with rice and peanuts. So I highly recommend pause the video. You don't need to watch me do this. Pause the video, find these coefficients on your own. See if you can get them. So for rice, right, we'll have some amount of grams of protein per gram of rice. And we'll find that coefficient and so on. And do the same thing for peanuts. Okay. I'm going to do this. I'm going to pause the video myself and not spend the time right here. And then I'll fill it in and we'll finish the problem. All right, so your research may have been a little bit different. I looked mostly at white rice and kind of tried to find average. And again, you can see that there's not very much protein, almost no fat in rice, and 0.25 grams of carbs per gram of rice. So yeah, lots of carbs in rice as you'd expect. For peanuts, they have a pretty good protein content, lots of fat, as with most nuts, and not very many carbs. Fill those in as the coefficients up here. And now we have our system of equations. So doing this by hand would be a nightmare. That's why we're using a website here. We're not doing this one by hand. You could if you wanted to practice. But either way, let's see what it looks like. So if you do that, you type it into this website just like so, and it can solve it for you. We'll compute it. And what we've got is, oh, it's upset that this is blank. Use a system of 3 equations. Yes, thank you. All right, so when you do that, it gives us a negative z. Guys, we let's approximate that. We need 171 grams of rice. We need 246 grams of tofu. And we are not using any peanuts. If we use peanuts, we've got a real problem. Okay, so this problem won't really make sense. We'll approximate. We'll say close. Say 171 grams of rice, 246 grams of tofu, lots of tofu, and no peanuts. This is the best we can do. Might have to increase the other ones. All right. It's not perfect. Okay. Yeah, that's funny. But again, all this problem really wanted you to do is get practice setting up the system here. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, we could solve it. This one is not really solvable with these numbers that we used. But of course, if I wanted you to solve it, I would give you the numbers probably. We might do a fun activity where we get to find your own numbers. But anyway, that's what's going on for this video. Let me know if you have questions and hope you enjoy it. We got more practice in the next video.